Hello and welcome to another episode of Chattin' with Jeanine. I'm your host, State Representative Jeanine Naughter. It's allergy season and it's campaign season. So in spite of allergies, I'm here to talk with Kevin Smith, who's running for Congress, Senate, and with him is my co-host this week, Representative Maureen Mooney.
Great to be here, Jeanine. Thank you for inviting me, and it's great to welcome Kevin back to Merrimack.
I was going to say, it's been a long time since I've been chatting with Jeanine, but it's great to be back with you and to be chatting with Maureen as well. I get two for the price of one today.
And we rhyme.
Jeanine and Maureen, right?
Yes.
There you go.
So Kevin, last time you were on the show, it's been years.
It has been years.
I remember a lot of the conversation that we had. Your children thought you were actually running
That's right.
a race
Yes.
for the whatever you were running for
Right,
then.
yeah. I was back when I was running for governor in 2012, so 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of time's gone by at that point. Now my oldest is graduating from high school.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to be off at Keene State next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. It's very exciting. I've got my daughter is going to be a junior in high school next year, and my son will be in 8th grade. So they're growing up
Amazing.
pretty quick.
You used to refer to him as Tommy Tornado.
Tommy Tornado. You remember Maureen?
I
That's
do.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is still a tornado in his own right.
Is he?
Trust me. Yes. Yeah. But now he channels it through things like football and lacrosse. So it's great.
Very good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep.
So that checks off the question about tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
Unless you
Yeah.
want to
Well,
expand on
and
it.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my wife, Susie.
Susie, yes.
19 years now.
Oh.
And we both grew up in Londonderry, although Susie's a native to town there. And I like to tell people we've known each other since middle school, but she wanted nothing to do with me in middle school or
how
high school,
funny.
or most of college too. So we didn't start dating until after college, but we've known each other a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were a state representative.
I was
Long time ago.
25 years ago. I was elected at 19 from the town of Londonderry.
Wow.
Yeah, and served on the Judiciary and Family Law Committee. It was the one and only term where they combined family law and the judiciary.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, they tried to do that again.
Well, they realized what a terrible mistake it was
Right.
after that one term. I mean, we had close to 150 bills come through our committee in the first year.
That's tough. That's a
it was-
workload, yeah.
It is a workload. So, but yeah, it was, I mean, what a wonderful experience being in the House. And obviously, I know both of you have served in the House, are serving in the House, and I'm sure you're familiar with the HRA,
Yes.
House Republican Alliance.
very
Sure.
much, yep.
That actually, I was a founding member of the HRA along with Paul Mirsky back in
Oh,
1997.
Wow. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew about Paul, but I didn't know. Oh, good for you.
Well, and the whole reason it happened was because even as Republicans, we were in the majority in terms of membership, but we were always in the minority on a lot of votes.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
Right.
that you felt should be going the Republican way, but they weren't.
Yep.
And so we formed the House Republican Alliance to start voting in a block as a group, because we said we got to make a stand here, because even though we, again, in numbers we're in the majority, on vote after vote on good conservative policy, we kept finding ourselves in the minority. And so,
well, the HRA people of your time
Yeah.
are now the leadership.
well, that's great news. That's great to hear. And that was the whole purpose and intent of it. Was again to start voting as a block and make it that they had to pay attention to the conservatives
Yes.
who were in the House. Yeah.
So Maureen and I are both in leadership. I'm the whip, and she's assistant whip number 1.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Who
That's
was-
great.
Who was the speaker at that time?
It was Donna Sitek.
Was it? Okay.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah,
It
wow.
was Donna Sitek, and that was her first year as speaker. And I have great affection for Donna. Donna and I had a great relationship, during that term that I served, and still consider her a friend today. But it was also Jean Shaheen's first term as governor as
Okay.
well. That was the first year she won. So it was definitely a big transition year
Yes.
up at the State House that year.
I had a kid in 4th grade that year.
And I didn't have any kids, Jeanine, so.
Oh, wow.
Long time ago.
It goes by so fast.
Yeah, I was a
does.
kid practically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you really have a desire and a calling to serve.
Yeah.
Kevin, this goes back to when you were 19, making it into elected office.
Yeah.
And even right now, you could do anything. Town manager of Londonderry, the job market's great, you could pursue anything, you've got a family. Why, again, put yourself out there in the arena and run for this very large office?
Well, I appreciate you asking me that question, Maureen, because I was a town manager in Londonderry for the last 8.5 years. A job I loved being town manager.
You did a good job at it, too.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I feel like a government that's closest to the people is most responsive to the people. And the thing I loved about being town manager was, number one, you can get things done so quickly on the local level, and you can be very responsive. And you couldn't go anywhere, the grocery store, the ball fields, church, wherever, without somebody stopping you and saying, hey, there's an issue going on I need you to look into,
Yes.
right? And I love that side of it. And we did have a lot of success. We were the fastest growing community for economic development. We gave back over $11 million in budget surplus back to the property taxpayers.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Over
huge.
8.5 years. And so we had a historically low tax rate when I left there back in February. But so I love that position. I was also the chairman of the Pease Development Authority, was appointed to that in 2017, and so oversaw the ports and harbors in Portsmouth as well. And again, loved that job in terms of economic development. We grew jobs on the trade port. And so, I stepped down from both of those positions in February to do this, because I feel so strongly about what's happening in America right now. I love this country. I still believe this is the greatest country on earth. But we're in a hole right now. And we've always climbed out of these holes before as a country. You can look
I
back.
have to remember that. I can't keep that in mind.
You have to remember
I
that.
think of the Woodrow Wilson administration.
You go back in all sorts of
Yes.
points in time and realize when it looked like the country was down and out, and we're resilient. We bounce back because that's who we are as Americans. But I feel like right now that we are in this period where we've got to save America from this socialist agenda that's being pushed upon us.
Amen.
Very true.
And I feel so strongly about that I was willing to get out of my comfort zone of being town manager and being chairman to put myself out there to say, this is a new thing I'm taking on, because we need good conservative leadership in the Senate. I think we need new blood, new energy. I think we need a new generation of conservative leaders in Washington that aren't going to go down just to get along, go along and get along, but are actually going to want to get stuff done.
Yes.
And that's, by the way, I've signed the term limits pledge.
Oh.
Because I believe strong, 2 terms in the Senate, that would be enough.
That's 12 years.
It's 12 years. And
long
if you
time.
can't get done what you want to get done during that time, then maybe you shouldn't be down there. I think we've had people in Washington, both Republicans and Democrats, that have been there for far too long.
Yes.
And they become part of the system, right? They become part of the process. It gets stagnant. You want people with new ideas. You want people with a fresh perspective of how things are being run. And that's why I've limited myself and said, whether we ever have a term limits amendment or not, 2 terms would be it for me. Because again, I believe very much in that new ideas and bringing fresh perspective to it all.
Well, I know on the issues you're very conservative, so you would vote the way I would vote. But it's a crowded field in the primary. What
Yeah.
makes you stand out from the other candidates?
Yeah, it's a great question. First off, I would just say that I have a tremendous amount of respect for everyone that's in the race. The more the high profile ones, in addition to myself, are Chuck Morse and Don Bolduc right now. But I know there's some other folks as well that have said they're going to jump in and file next month. I would, I guess, start by saying this. One, I think we're going to need a broad coalition of voters to defeat Maggie Hassan in the fall. It's not going to just be the Republican base, but it's also going to take Trump independents and Reagan Democrats to all come together to make sure that we can defeat Maggie Hassan, because that's the ultimate goal. And I think if you look at my track record between having been in the trenches with the activists, having a voting record, people know I'm a trusted conservative, and they know that I'm going to vote the right way. But also the reputation I've built with the business community in the state as well. A lot of these folks, both from the Manchester area, from the Seacoast, who have invested in my campaign. We raised $410,000 over 9 weeks. Into my campaign.
That's extraordinary.
Well, I appreciate it. And again, I think that shows the investment that people are willing to make, that they know I'm someone who says what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go in there and get results. And again, I also go back to what I said before, is that I think people want a fresh face. I think they want new ideas, and they want a new generation of leadership.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, you definitely bring that to the campaign trail, that's for sure. So you get an opportunity that not many people get, and that is traveling this whole state. I mean, U.S. Senate, we all know, is a statewide office. There are only 3 in New Hampshire, 2 state U.S. senators, and then the governor. You're traveling the whole state, corner to corner. So who are you meeting on the campaign trail, and what topics, what is on the mind of the voter here in New Hampshire in 2022?
Yeah, well, and that's... So part of the great thing about running statewide is you do see every corner of the state. And the thing that's so unique, I think, about New Hampshire, and my campaign manager, Seb, and I were actually talking about this over the weekend, is how for such a small state, there's so many different areas, and almost villages, whether it's the Lakes region, the Sea Coast, the western area of the state close to Vermont, the North Country, all very different areas within the state that have their own unique issues going on, right? But I'll tell you the singular biggest coalescing issue right now when I'm out talking to people, it's inflation, it's the gas prices, it's the shortage on the food shelves, it's the cost of home heating oil. So I was up at Weirs Beach last weekend, and just going around meeting. There was a festival going on, and I was going up to people, random people, right? I didn't know if they were Republican, Independent, Democrat, or whatnot. Oh my gosh, people are incensed, right? Not one person said to me, I kind of like the way things are, right? Not one. No, and again, I didn't know who I'm randomly going up to people. They're
then they need to vote.
Well, Jeanine, trust me, they are going to vote because they have said, Kevin, we need a change starting this November. We need a change. What's happening in Washington right now is it's almost like they're taking us on a path down to, have them wanting to shove down a socialist agenda, right?
And socialism is one step away from communism.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like you look at all the different things that they've done to ruin this economy. Start with not being energy independent anymore, right? I mean, it's not just the price of gas. Again, it's the price of home heating oil. I had 2 people on the trail, again, up at the Weirs, say to me, they said, Kevin, how are people going to choose between eating and heating this fall, right? Because oil prices, they're not coming down. We ordered 100 gallons of oil last week just to try to help us get through the summer, right? $6.09 a gallon. So we paid over $600 for 100 gallons of heating oil. If you go into the fall months and it's $7, God forbid, $8, and then you look at the price of groceries, seriously, people are going to be in the place between deciding, do I heat my home? Do I put food on the table? It is so outrageous, so outrageous. And it's all a direct result of the disastrous policies that Joe Biden and Maggie Hassan has gone along with it. What they've done, between shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, we're not producing, we're not drilling for oil here at home anymore. We're importing it from our enemies. They've put suspensions on the publicly leased lands. The drilling permits, they've only given a third of them out. And there's all of these environmental regulations that come with them. So they're not even investing in doing setting up to do the drilling anyway. And this is just one issue out of so many. But the energy that's affecting the inflation too, right? Because if you're a manufacturer, it's going to cost you a lot more to manufacture these goods. If you're a trucker, it's costing you a lot more to deliver everything. And this is affecting so many aspects of our economy. You look at how many restaurant owners we have in this state, right? New Hampshire is a small business state. We thrive on small businesses. You got restaurant owners that are saying, Kevin, I'm having to pay my staff, $15 an hour just to retain them, right? To bring in staff. And then on top of that, because of the cost of food and what it's costing them, they've had to increase the prices on their menus. Well, guess what that means? That means people aren't eating out as much anymore, right? It's all a chain reaction. And if people aren't eating out as much, then their profit margins are going down on top of everything else going up. And this is just one sector of our economy.
Well, if the governor signs HB 1221, the small businesses can look forward to having their business profits tax lowered a little bit.
Well, that would be great. And you know what?
It's going to help.
You guys deserve a lot of credit for what I'm glad you promoted that because, before you guys ever lower the business profits tax, The Democrats, of course, their whole thing was, oh, how are you going to make up for the lost revenue? And we knew the revenue was not going to go down. Revenue was going to go up.
Yeah, it always does.
It always does, because that investment goes back into those businesses.
Our policies work better than socialism.
Well, because they're free market policies. They're capitalist policies, which grows the economy.
Yes.
And right now, you have policies in Washington that are doing everything they can to shut down the free market system, to shut down capitalism. And we all know what socialism leads to. It leads to 10% of the people having all the wealth and 90% of the people being in poverty.
Right.
It's like they want to make people more and more dependent on the government. And we know what happened. Here's the worst thing about that: when you're making all of these people dependent on the government. Look at how they're talking about canceling student loans right now, which we know is actually not a cancellation, but is just a transfer of debt from the people who owe it to the rest of us, right? Who either already paid their student loans or didn't take out student loans. But here's the biggest, I think, the worst part about it. You rob someone of their human dignity when you make them dependent on the government. When they're dependent on the government to live rather than producing themselves with their God-given talents. Everyone's given God-given talents to go out and produce something, right? With their hands, their mind, their ingenuity, whatever. You rob people of that when you make them dependent on the government.
Yes.
And that's the worst part about it. You're robbing them of their human dignity. And that's not what America was founded on either. America is a place for equal opportunity. It's where everyone's got an equal shot to do anything they want.
Right.
And you notice that's the other thing the Democrats have done too. It's not about equality anymore. It's about, what's the key word? Equity. Equity.
Right.
So if you don't have something, even though you maybe haven't worked for it, we're going to take it from the person that did work for it and give it to you, because that's equity, right?
Yeah. Well, it sounds so appealing.
Of course it does.
Give me
Right.
but then,
Of course it does.
if everybody's getting it free, what you get is nothing. You
Yeah.
get
Exactly.
nothing.
So
exactly.
very true.
Well, and you get, again, a whole generation that's just dependent on the government. Look what they're doing with our debt right now. And the amount of deficit spending that's going on.
Yes.
I mean, we're headed for an economic calamity in this country. You can't keep spending yourselves into an oblivion.
So
Right.
what
Very
day
good
is
point.
the primary?
The primary is September 13th, so we're less than
September
4
13th.
months
Yes.
to the primary now.
It goes fast,
Right.
doesn't it?
It does.
Now,
It
I know a lot of
it goes
people
super
only
fast.
want to vote in presidential elections, but the midterms are so important because we have
So
the
important.
opportunity to vote in people who will protect our wallets and our military, our freedom, and our reputation in the world.
Well, I hope I do a lot better at getting people out to vote for the primary than I did at ever getting them to vote in town elections.
Yeah.
Because no matter how many times I said, go and
it's
vote.
so hard.
I always
We
told them,
tried.
this
Yes.
is, I know, you guys know on the local level
Right.
here, it's, your property taxes, it's all being driven at the local level, right? And it's always discouraging to me how few people...
And the Democrats pumped in tons of money
Yeah.
to town elections.
which are
Yeah.
supposed to be nonpartisan.
We
But
got
they're-
involved because we wanted to get good people in, but we just don't have the money to send out all the mailers and whatever
Right.
else they did.
Right.
Right.
But the midterms are so vitally important, because this is to get America back on the right track. This is a two-step process. Number one is taking back the House and Senate this fall, right, in November.
Exactly.
That's the
God
first
help
step.
us.
So at least we can stop the Biden agenda. And by the way, so Congress can assert its authority again over all of these executive orders, which are policy-making executive orders.
Yeah.
Congress needs to start challenging those through the court system to say, you're not going to start setting policy that Congress should have the authority for. So that's number one. Number two is then electing a new president in 2024. If we do that, we're going to be rocking and rolling.
Yes.
No doubt about it, right? And getting this country back on track. But it starts this November.
Yeah, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. Sadly, your community and ours have something in common. And I think you're going to know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. It's pollution
Yep.
in the water.
Right.
It's PFAS that has traveled from our community to yours.
Yes.
So you now are in this race having firsthand knowledge of the PFAS disaster. I mean, this is an
Disaster.
environmental disaster that
Right.
we've undergone, and you have experienced that in Londonderry. So from that angle, what are your thoughts with regards of what you can do, considering your familiarity with the subject matter
Right.
on the Washington stage?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, federal funds would help a lot
Yes.
in order to help mitigate this for all those people's wells that have been contaminated by PFAS. And I'm intimately aware of the issue that's going on right now as town manager, because this started a number of years ago, obviously, with St. Gobain. And by the way, kudos to you guys for everything you've done on the state level to, one, bring attention to this, two, hold polluters like St. Gobain accountable.
Yes.
Because that's the thing, too. You cannot let these polluters off the hook. And by off the hook, I mean saying, well, we'll create a state fund or we'll create a federal fund, without them doing anything. And I know they've put water lines through Merrimack and through Litchfield. They haven't done any in Londonderry because we were on the back end of it, finally being recognized by the state that this affected Londonderry as well. But we've taken our own actions in town to set up a reimbursement program, and we worked with the state to get that approved, whereby people can get reimbursed for water filtration systems that they put in Londonderry. But as a United States Senator, certainly that would be an area where I think that kind of funding is worthy of it, because people need their health first and foremost. And number two is we have to draw more attention to these harmful chemicals like PFAS that a lot of people still even aren't aware of. When I talk to other folks from around the state, it feels like southern New Hampshire has been ground zero right now.
Yes.
But folks, more to the, north of Concord, let's say, aren't as familiar with PFAS because it just hasn't really, quote unquote, hit their communities yet.
Right.
But it's
Very
coming.
true.
And
It's
they're
coming.
not really all that concerned about us either, because it's not in their backyard.
Well, but you know what? Sooner than later, it's going to be in their backyard because we know it's, again, all it takes is one polluter to either put it airborne or put it into the ground, and their wells are going to be contaminated.
It's amazing because it's an issue. It's one thing to hear about it, but it's
Yeah.
another thing to live through it. And
Right.
you as a candidate have actually lived through
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, very familiar with
That's
it.
a good point.
And we've had our
Yes.
water tested a number of times through DES, checking for our PFAS levels. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, I know our time is probably almost
We
up,
have about
right?
5 minutes, and the last
Oh,
few
5
minutes,
minutes, okay.
I always give to the candidate. I'll let you speak directly to the camera, to the voters in Merrimack. But go ahead and ask your question.
Just
please.
very quickly, if you can,
Yeah.
though it's not a quick topic,
Yeah.
but that is election law. Boy, I'll tell you, in Concord, we are constantly trying to make amendments and adjustments to election law, for example, same-day voter registration that people have issues with and so forth. But it seems like we are constantly coming up against federal laws regarding elections, constantly hitting that
Yep.
wall.
Right.
It's at the point where if we don't have some change in Washington with regards to our election laws, I don't know what else we can possibly do. We're starting to hit the end of the road, and it's going to be D.C. now that has to
Right.
make changes.
Right.
With the current crew that's down there now, I'm not seeing a whole lot of change coming. What are your thoughts with regards to how to address this very important issue that at this point has to be from the federal level?
Well, let's hope they don't get their way, because they tried getting their way. This is one of the issues that Maggie Hassan voted to blow up the filibuster over, because they wanted to federalize our local elections here.
See?
Get rid of voter ID. That was a big part of it. They wanted to implement ballot harvesting,
Yes.
the mail-in ballots. I mean, completely would have undermined our election system here. And so that's the first thing, is making sure that we take back again Congress, so that this federalizing of our local elections doesn't go through.
Right.
Why we don't have universal voter ID yet is beyond me.
Exactly.
And that's something I would like to see Congress pass, and every state should be implementing voter ID. And this whole idea of ballot harvesting, everybody knows that the more hands that touch a ballot, the more susceptible those ballots are to something nefarious, right? The most integral election system you can have is that you've got one person that fills out the ballot, and then they put it in the machine, and that's it, right? And then it's counted. But the more hands that touch those ballots, the more it's susceptible to error. Not even just, if it doesn't even have to be something nefarious. It could just be human error, right? With how many hands touch the ballots.
Right. Voter integrity is crucial. It's crucial.
It is absolutely crucial, because it's the linchpin of our democracy.
Yes.
People need to feel like our elections have the utmost integrity and they're fair. Because if they don't feel that way, then trust in the whole process starts to be undermined.
Precisely.
So we have about 2.5 minutes left, so
Yeah.
I want to thank Maureen for being my co-host and speaking, because I have the allergy season. And Kevin, I would like to give the last 2 minutes to you to look directly in the camera and talk to the voters of Merrimack.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the time to be chatting here today with Jeanine and with Maureen and with all of you in Merrimack. You know, as I said at the beginning of this show, the election this fall is about saving America from the socialist policies that Joe Biden and his friends like Maggie Hassan want to implement and shove down our throats. And that is not America. And that's why this election this fall is so vital. And if you want someone who's a proven conservative fighter, as I am, someone who has a voting record from having been in the State House, worked on the staffs of former Senator Bob Smith and of Craig Benson, ran a group called Cornerstone and raised $1 million to help flip the House and the Senate right here in New Hampshire back in 2010. And also someone who has proven results, a proven record of getting results on the local level as town manager of Londonderry and as chairman of the Pease Development Authority, then I'm your candidate. And we need to build that broad coalition this fall of Republicans and Trump independents and Reagan Democrats to make sure that we beat Maggie Hassan. And so over the coming months, I hope to earn your trust, I hope to earn your respect, and I hope to earn your vote on September 13th, and especially in November. And if you want to find out more information, you can go to my website. It's kevinsmithforsenate.com. Thank you.
Is that Kevin Smith?
It's all
with
spelled
a
out.
four? Okay, F-O-R.
Kevin Smith for Senate.
Okay,
yes.
good.
Excellent.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, and thank you for chatting with me and Maureen. So
Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Kevin. Good luck.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
thank you for watching.